Do you remember your first really good system?
My first really good system?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I remember. And the question is it a really good system? I can tell you the first system I had that I thought of as being a good system.
That's good enough.
And that was one that I got when I was 16. And it was a Fisher 500C, a Dual 1219 with a Stanton 681 Triple E cartridge, and a pair of JBL Nova 88 speakers.
Oh.
Remember exactly what it was. It was just before, it was just when Fisher was coming out with their solid state stuff. So they were trying to dump their tube stuff. Oh, I think that was around 67, 68 actually.
Okay.
And that was the first decent system I had. And I got to tell you, it was okay. It wasn't bad.
No.
Wasn't great.
But, okay, not compared to what came later, but in terms of the time, you can't judge it against what you had in the future.
So here's the one thing I want to say, and that is that that receiver continued to play for about 35 years without a single tube change. I mean, obviously I should have done it. After I got rid of it, I gave it to my mother, and she had it till the day she died.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how old that was, and that really worked.
Wow.
So my next system, let's just go through them. I graduated with pretty good, Dean's List, Phi Beta Kappa, all that stuff from college. So I blackmailed my mother into buying me a new stereo for a graduation present. And that was, oh, geez, I'm sorry, I just winced because my neck just went off. Excuse me, public. So it consisted of an MX110 preamp tuner by Macintosh, a pair of 60-watt Macintosh monoblock tube amplifiers, and another pair of JBLs. These were the Lancer 99s. And that was really good. I didn't know enough about turntables then to justify spending more money on a turntable. I thought I had the best turntable in the world, pre-Lin days, right? Right. And so it just kept going. But my interest in having really, really good hi-fi was, it was more than a hobby. It was an obsession. Right, so I just kept on doing that and trying to get better and better over time. And I think I succeeded.
And here you are in 2022.
And yeah, I got some nice stuff.
Well, it's interesting. You have a home system.
Right.
But you have a whole bunch of systems here that are your toys too.
Yeah,
so
yeah. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the home system, that what I have there is better than what I'm showing here. Some of it's timing. For instance, the speakers I currently have at home, I love them. They're great, but they're very expensive. They're made by a company called Kaiser Kawero, and whereas I can justify the cost of the speakers, it's harder for other people too. When you can get one that has a bigger and bolder sound from Stenheim for, like 45% less money. So I guess what I'm saying is that what I would like might not be the best thing for a customer.
Right.
And I make that available to everybody. The other thing that's important to know is, contrary to popular thoughts, the most expensive piece of gear that somebody has in a store is not necessarily the best one. So I would have to tell you that my favorite amplifier, and I think it's going to remain nameless so I don't cause a lot of aggravation, with people that make more expensive amplifiers, sells for about $20,000, where the amplifiers I sell here in the store go well up into the $100,000, $200,000 price range. Why don't I have them? It's not a question of not having the money or not the desire to have them. I just happen to like this thing better. And if somebody asks me about it, I will tell them. But the oddest thing, and this is an interesting bit of psychology, I guess, as we were talking about having to be a shrink. When I tell people about this amplifier that I personally love and I use and I think everybody should own, even if they have a more expensive, bigger amplifier, because it gives you a great basis of comparison, people tend to go, oh yeah, sure, okay, and then they buy the more expensive one. So how does that make sense? I don't know.
Huh.
But yeah, I have two. I mean, the system I have at home is curated differently than this one.
So what's the rest of it?
I have an Ypsilon preamplifier and Ypsilon phonostage, which is tubes, and a Grail SE phonostage, which is solid state. Why do I have both? Well, the one thing, you know, when you listen to a tube phonostage, you're always thinking about how my tube's doing that day. I know that's paranoid, but it's true. So if, for instance, let's say my cartridge isn't sounding really, I know this is getting incredibly arcane, but this is who I am. Suppose
you are an audiophile.
Yeah. So let's say my cartridge isn't sounding great. How do I know it's the cartridge and not the phonostage? Well, I'll just switch over to the solid state phonostage. Tubes, you know, it's pretty much always the same. So, you know, that's...
So it's a check.
It's a check, and I also like it. It's different. They're two different perspectives, and I like them both. So I have two of them. Do I think that people need to do that? No, I'm crazy. You should never do that. You should pick one and be happy with it. And I help people decide which one to pick because I know the idiosyncrasies and how it would affect them.
I mean, that is a question, like, you have customers that are analog customers and customers that are digital. It's
right.
And some, obviously, many have both,
right.
But there's analog people and digital people.
Right, and they really don't mix very well. I mean, even some of my best digital customers who have had turntables have abandoned them altogether.
Right.
And a lot of them are just completely immune to my entreaties that they buy a turntable and listen to what music really sounds like.
Ooh, kind of holding back.
It's not holding back. Because, you know, in the end, no matter... So here's the interesting thing when I compare analog and digital. I will grant you that I can put a high-resolution file on and stream it, and I will be getting more obvious detail from it than from the record. Things will be in starker relief in terms of instruments between each other, but it's never tonally 100% ever. And in particular these days, wow, there's just so many good turntables and tone arms and cartridges. This new Brinkmann Taurus turntable, I think is phenomenal at, you know, half the price of what the Brinkmann Balance is. I love so Griffin, as you probably know, is a Danish company that's famous for making huge Class A amplifiers. I mean, you know, 300, 500-pound amplifiers with heat sinks on them that would cut your head off if you weren't careful. They introduced a new preamp and amplifier called the Essence series. The Essence 50 watt per channel solid state Class A amp. One of the sweetest, most accurate, most detailed little amplifiers I've heard. And when I compare it to their big amps, I like it better. So
wow. What's
an amp doing? Let's say sometimes the speed of and the nimbleness of a smaller amp is a much more attractive thing than the huge power of a big, powerful amplifier, which will do certain things that the smaller amp won't do, but vice versa is also true. So, you know, in terms of the quality of equipment today, you've never had better quality equipment. The other thing that's fascinating is how much good, inexpensive tube equipment has come along, especially from Europe. And I guess I should really point that out. It's really sad to me that I look around this store and almost everything high-end that we sell is made overseas. It's made in Switzerland, it's made in Denmark, it's made in Germany, it's made in England. It's not made here. And that's not because I don't want to sell American products. When I can, I go out of my way to do so. It's because many years ago, the American audio market took a right turn or a left turn, as the case may be, depending how you feel about it, into home theater.
Mm.
And that set the stage for the decline of American high-end audio manufacturing as opposed to major like surround sound. Like there are surround sound preamplifiers that sell for like $50,000, $60,000 now, and I have to ask myself, what are you getting for that? Are the waves crashing behind you all that much clearer? What is that? So, my take on that is it was the it was a detour that nobody ever came back from, and some companies are trying to do it. But while they were doing it, the Europeans had 25 years to bring their game up,
Mm.
and they have brought their game up. There's nothing. There's a company called Lab 12 from Greece. You should really get something to review from them. You
Okay.
really should. They make a $2,200 tube preamplifier and a $3,000 25 per channel Class A single-ended amplifier. That's $4,500. You put those two things together, it's amazing.
Mm.
I can't find a single because I've compared them to some of the American tube gear in this lower price. You can't touch it. So why are these guys able to do it? Typically, imported products should cost more, but they don't. And this is handmade in Greece. This is not made in, this is not made in some assembly line in communist China. So, yeah, I got to say, the United States there's some companies that kept doing it, but I have not felt the kind of innovation in most of them, and that's not all of them. There are many American companies who I love. MSB would be one of them. Um, I think that they're really, really terrific. Uh, they just make excellent products. The Backert preamplifiers are wonderful.
That was fantastic. Right.
Yeah, the Backert preamplifier is made by this guy in Delaware. He makes 3 models, and he basically makes it along with his son. And the preamplifiers, I would say, they range in price from about $4,500 to almost $12,000. And I would say each one of them is as good as anything you can buy from another company for twice as much. It's made right here in the United States. So smaller companies, I think, are keeping the faith. I don't know about the larger ones.
Hmm. We could restart this. You became friends with some customers? I mean, beyond the audio aspect.
Yeah, a number of them I became really good friends with. And, in some ways, I was the kiss of death. I had because I had 2 customers who I really became very good friends with. And the unfortunate thing is I became really good friends with them. And the person that was buying was the husband. And unfortunately, in both these cases, the husband apparently didn't appreciate just how wonderful his spouse was. And they broke up. So that became 2 cases. And I thought I was a curse.
Wow.
Yeah, but, I remained friends with both of them, which is that's a tough thing to do.
Mm.
And in one case, the guy who was one of my first customers became a physician that I went to for many years until he retired. So, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I had any number of friends and who are in the business. But that's also something you have to be very, very cognizant of as a kind of friendship. You need, in friendships, I think you really need to look at the derivation of the friendship and be aware that the minute that somebody you have a commercial relationship with is a friend, it will affect both relationships. It's impossible for it not to. So you have to handle it very, very carefully. And you have to be friends with the people who you're being friends with have to be reasonable also. And in most of these cases, they were. So, yeah, it was a good experience.
Oh, we have to talk about Mike Trey.
Oh, you and Mike Trey are the most consistent people in my audio history.
Okay.
I've known you much longer than Mike, but I see Mike much more often because Mike takes care of my turntable.
Right. Right. Yeah,
And
exactly.
I won't let anybody else take care of my turntable. Mikey's my turntable ingenious,
And
you know? And a lot of
you
times,
hire him to set up your customers' turntables.
I used to hire him through me. Mostly I just tell him to call him now,
Oh, okay.
and I do that. And this is something that I've always thought about. I've never thought about it's like labor and installation. I think this is something we should cover. Nobody likes to pay for labor. Everybody hates paying for labor. I hate paying for labor. So I've always tried to make my company um, component centric, not labor centric. What does that mean? Custom installation companies make about 75% of their money on labor and wires for which they charge astronomical amounts. I think that a high end audio company should make 95% of its money on components and associated equipment and 5% of its money on labor, if it can. So I've been always very careful to keep the costs of labor down as much as I possibly can. And one of the things I've done is that when I'm using outside contractors, because my tree no longer works for me, um, and rather than trying to hire him and then upcharge on it,
Right. Right.
I won't do that anymore because I'm not providing any value added whatsoever. And it's much easier for the customer to call a guy like Mike Trey directly, have him go there. So Michael charge him $500 to set up his turntable. Do I need the profit on that? No, I don't need that. I don't need that money. I need to know that that customer is going to be taken care of like I would take care of him if I could set up the turntable as well as Mike.
Mm.
And I think that the best way of doing that is letting Mike be the one who handles it. And in fact, that's turned out to be absolutely true with any of the independents that I use who used to work for me. So yeah, Mike Trey is and Mike Trey has just gotten a job writing for Stereophile, and I couldn't be happier for him because if anybody deserves that gig after all these years of basically not being recognized for the amount of knowledge that he has, he does.
Mm.
So God bless you, Mike. Write up a storm, but you better leave plenty of time to take care of my turntable, or otherwise the next interview ain't going to be so good. You hear me?
Ooh.
Good to see you, Mike. Take care.
This was amazing. This is the longest interview I've ever done because there's a lot to cover.
There is a
So
lot to cover.
we
It's
have
44 years.
we have a history, and it's amazing. And I have to restate how important meeting you, not just blowing smoke, it's true, meeting you and how it changed my life, and learned so much about the audio business and dealing with people and doing demos. Doing thousands of demos was the best preparation to becoming a reviewer, because I kind of know how they react to gear, and that's part of the background to what I do.
Well, I really appreciate your saying that. And, you've been a constant in my life all of these years, and it's been a pleasure to know you all these years. I really appreciate your friendship and your integrity
Oh,
all these
thanks.
years as well.